Every time the patrol car rolled past my driveway, I knew she had called again, convinced I didn't belong, unaware that every report was quietly building a case against her. Let me start from the beginning. The neighborhood sold itself on serenity. Manicured lawns, uniform mailboxes, matching streetlights, and a homeowners association that promised order as if it were a luxury amenity. When I bought my house, the paperwork was thick, the rules thicker, but nothing seemed unusual. I paid my dues, followed the bylaws, and kept my property cleaner than most. Still, within weeks, a pattern emerged that had nothing to do with grass height or trash bins. The first security car arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was unloading groceries, my garage open, receipts still folded in my pocket. The vehicle slowed, paused, and continued on. I didn't think much of it. Patrols were common, and the HOA paid for private security to supplement local police. It felt unnecessary but harmless. 2 days later, it happened again. This time, the car stopped longer. The officer took notes from inside the vehicle, scanned the house, and drove away. By the end of the week, it had become routine. Sometimes it was morning, sometimes evening, sometimes twice a day. The consistency was impossible to ignore. I began noticing where the calls came from. The same house, 2 doors down, always had its blinds parted just enough. A woman stood there often, arms folded, posture rigid, eyes sharp with judgment. She watched everything. Who parked where, who walked their dog too long, who had visitors. Her presence felt less like vigilance and more like surveillance. The HOA newsletter praised community involvement and encouraged residents to report suspicious behavior. The word suspicious lingered in my mind. Nothing about my routine was unusual. I worked from home, kept to myself, and followed every posted rule. Still, security logs later showed that reports had already begun labeling me as unfamiliar, possibly unauthorized, and potentially threatening. Each call escalated slightly. One report claimed a strange man was accessing the property at odd hours. Another suggested someone might be running an unregistered business from the home. One even implied the house might be vacant and illegally occupied. None of it was true. All of it was recorded. What made it worse was the quiet confidence behind the calls. Whoever was reporting believed they were right. The tone, according to security summaries, carried certainty. There was no hesitation, no doubt, just a steady insistence that something was wrong and needed to be handled. I learned about the reports accidentally. During a routine HOA portal check, I noticed a note attached to my address referencing multiple security contacts. Curious, I requested clarification. The response was vague, citing privacy, but confirmed that security had been dispatched several times in response to resident concerns. That confirmation changed everything. What had felt like coincidence became intentional. The patrol cars were no longer neutral. They were responses to someone else's discomfort with my presence. As a Black homeowner in a predominantly white, tightly controlled neighborhood, the realization carried weight. It wasn't paranoia, it was documentation. Someone had decided I didn't fit the image of ownership they expected, and instead of asking questions, they called security. The stress crept in quietly. Each knockless visit, each slow drive-by chipped away at the sense of safety the neighborhood advertised. Home began to feel conditional, as if belonging could be revoked by someone else's perception. Still, I did nothing publicly. I didn't confront anyone, I didn't post on community boards. I kept records, dates, times, license numbers. I requested security logs formally and cited my right as a homeowner. The responses were slow, but they came. By the end of the month, a thick digital file sat on my desktop. Every call, every note, every false claim, and one name appeared again and again as the reporting party: the woman 2 doors down. As I scrolled through the entries, it became clear this wasn't about safety. It was about control, fear, and assumption. And although she believed the system would protect her authority, she had no idea that the same system was quietly documenting her behavior. The stage was set, and the evidence was already there, waiting for someone to connect the dots. The next chapter would begin when those dots could no longer be ignored. The moment I saw the full security log, the situation shifted from personal frustration to procedural certainty. The HOA had built its authority on documentation, and now that same machinery was outlining a clear narrative of harassment. Dates lined up with my presence, times matched my routine. None of the reports resulted in findings. Every patrol noted no violation, no threat, no issue. Yet the calls kept coming. The reporting resident never adjusted her behavior despite repeated non-events. That detail mattered. In HOA governance, patterns speak louder than complaints. A single call might be concern. A dozen identical calls with no outcome becomes something else entirely. I submitted a formal request for review, attaching my own log alongside the security reports. The language was careful, neutral, and grounded in policy. I cited sections of the HOA bylaws regarding misuse of community resources and harassment through repeated false reports. I avoided emotion and focused on impact. Within days, the tone from the HOA shifted. Emails became more formal. Timelines were acknowledged. A case number was assigned. The property management company confirmed that an internal review had begun regarding excessive security dispatches tied to a single address. Meanwhile, the patrol cars continued to arrive, but something was different. Officers stayed shorter. Notes were briefer. One log even mentioned prior clearance. The system was catching on. The woman's behavior, however, intensified. Her lawn became a stage for exaggerated maintenance. Her glances grew more pointed. She began standing closer to the sidewalk when I arrived home, positioning herself as a witness to nothing at all. Every movement felt performative, as if she were building a story no one else believed anymore. The HOA scheduled a compliance review meeting. Attendance was limited, but summaries would be issued. I wasn't required to appear, which spoke volumes. Instead, the focus was on the reporting behavior itself. Security logs revealed that the same resident had filed complaints against multiple neighbors in the past, though none as frequent as mine. The pattern was undeniable. The difference this time was that the target had records, patience, and policy on his side. The final report used careful language. It avoided naming bias outright, but highlighted disproportionate reporting, lack of evidence, and misuse of security services. It concluded that continued behavior of this nature constituted harassment under HOA guidelines. Consequences followed. The resident received a fine for repeated false reports. More importantly, her ability to file security complaints was restricted. Any future concerns would require verification through the property management office before dispatch. It was an administrative boundary, but one with teeth. When the decision circulated in the community bulletin, names were omitted, but speculation spread quickly. The patrol cars stopped coming to my house. Weeks passed without a single drive-by. The quiet returned, this time without tension. The woman retreated indoors. Her blinds stayed closed. Her lawn work ceased to be a spectacle. The authority she believed she wielded had been reduced to paperwork and penalties. What struck me most was how quickly the narrative flipped. The system she trusted had not only failed to validate her assumptions, it had exposed them. Her certainty had become liability. Neighbors began nodding again. Casual greetings returned. The sense of conditional belonging loosened its grip. The house felt like home in a way it hadn't since the first patrol car rolled by. Still, resolution didn't feel triumphant. It felt instructive. The experience revealed how easily power can be misused when wrapped in rules, and how essential documentation becomes when confronting quiet aggression. The story wasn't over yet. The aftermath would bring its own lessons, and the community would have to sit with what had been uncovered. The final chapter would reveal what happens when a name becomes known and accountability can no longer hide behind procedure. The shift in atmosphere was subtle but unmistakable. The neighborhood didn't change its appearance, but it changed its posture. People paid more attention to process.
HOA meetings saw increased attendance. Questions were asked that had never been voiced before, not out of rebellion, but awareness. My name began appearing in conversations without being spoken directly. The phrase, homeowner at that address, circulated, followed by quiet acknowledgments. It wasn't about sympathy, it was recognition. The system had worked, but only because someone insisted it do so correctly. The woman's absence from community spaces was noted. She stopped attending meetings. Her once active presence on HOA forums vanished. The fine had been paid, but the restriction remained. She could no longer weaponize security as an extension of her discomfort. Property management issued a revised guideline on reporting, emphasizing objective criteria and discouraging speculative concerns. The language was clearly reactive. The case had left a mark. For me, the outcome was both relieving and sobering. I hadn't sought punishment, I had sought peace. What I gained instead was proof that vigilance cuts both ways. Systems can be bent, but they can also be corrected when exposed. The security company updated its protocols as well. Repeat false reports now triggered internal review automatically. Patterns would no longer linger unnoticed. The quiet harassment that once hid behind procedure had lost some of its cover. Living there became easier, but never naive again. I understood now that ownership didn't guarantee acceptance, and compliance didn't ensure safety. What mattered was knowing the rules well enough to demand they be applied fairly. Months later, the HOA released its annual report. Buried in the statistics was a sharp drop in security calls. The community had learned something, even if it never said it out loud. The woman eventually put her house on the market. No explanation was given. Her departure was quiet, without farewell or spectacle. The house sold, and new neighbors moved in, unaware of the history embedded in the sidewalk. As for me, I stayed, not out of stubbornness, but intention. Leaving would have felt like surrender to a narrative that never belonged to me. Staying was a statement, even if it was a silent one. The title to my home remained unchanged. My name on file now carried context, history, and recognition. Security knew it, the HOA knew it, and the neighborhood, consciously or not, adjusted around it. What began as repeated false calls ended as a case study in accountability. The drama wasn't loud. It didn't rely on confrontation or shouting. It unfolded through logs, emails, and policies, the very tools meant to maintain order. In the end, the lesson was simple and uncomfortable. When assumptions meet documentation, only one survives. And when systems are forced to look at themselves, they sometimes choose to do better. The patrol cars never returned to my driveway. The quiet this time was real, and the house finally felt like it knew my name.